maybe I made the wrong choice, but they're also super excited to be starting this new chapter. So I want to urge you to make that first day something really special. Bring some excitement. Everything okay?
Excitement.
You're creating the excitement.
The excitement is palpable here.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you may sign 100 customers that week, but to those 100 customers, they only hired one vendor. They don't care about the other 99. I don't care how many new customers that you signed. On that first day, that needs to be a party. You need to pop the champagne. You need to show them how excited you are. And bring that energy so they can see that you're thrilled. And by the way, don't fake it. You need to really feel it. I'm not saying act or pretend. I'm saying be excited. Treat every client or every customer like it's a big deal, and they will feed off that energy. And like you guys were saying, Richard was saying you got to know your customer. I mean, I'm saying find out what's their birthday. I'm saying, what are their kids' names and how old are they? And or whatever, where do they live? We're on Zooms. I've had times where it's like, oh, you're in the same city as me. Oh my God, we could have been meeting in person all this time. That kind of stuff happens, right? You know what I'm talking about? So know your customer and bring some excitement, and that kind of stuff is going to really help improve the retention. I found that gone wrong a lot.
Wonderful. Know your customer, wow your customer, and be in the customer's shoes, right, to understand how they would look at your product and solution. Fantastic. Great insights all around.
Also, maybe the industry, to add to that. When you say learn the jargon, learn the terminology, when a customer comes to you with a challenge or a problem and you can speak confidently and properly to the way they understand it. The way they understand it, but also the way other successful things in the industry have been done. It not only gives you more authority, but it gives them the comfort to want to work with you. Right? And that's also, the minute, maybe it is after you sign and you start losing it, you're losing a client after that first signature, but if they grow that trust in you and they feel comfortable with you, they're more likely to stay and take the leap with somebody else.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. We just have one more planned question after that. Think about what questions you have for this wonderful panel here. No discussion is complete without talking about AI. I'm pretty sure you have heard it several times throughout this conference yesterday and starting today. So customer support is one of the top 5 areas that's been said to be affected by generative AI. In fact, you can go search within ChatGPT, you can ask the question, what are the top 5 areas? Customer support will likely come as one of the top 5 areas. So the question here I have for this group is, how do you see AI impacting customer experience, both positive or negative, and how does that affect acquisition or retention from your business perspective?
I'd like to hear Rich's point first. So I'll start with the negative. We don't want a robotic experience. Right? None of us wants a canned ChatGPT. Here's your recommendation, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. We've all seen it. But how it can be done effectively. Let's layer it, right? So we've all, I think, in this room have used machine learning in some way, shape, or form to categorize our customers and or segment what have you, right? Take it a step further and automate that with generative AI to create content for those customers in those groups, etc. Right? So you can have a well-oiled algorithm that automates everything in the back end, and in the front end, tailor it to your audience. Right? There's so many layers to it, right? And I can go on and on and on. And I can architect it too if you want, but be that as it may, right? It's a powerful tool to help us identify our customers, communicate with our customers, and even live, right? So you've now got the AIs that can detect and analyze conversations live, and we can in turn use generative AI on the back end to use that audio recording to generate responses for you, or at least summarize responses, and have that conversation live, powered by AI. And I think
from a customer retention perspective, there are no longer hiccups in information delivery, or at the very least, there's no gap, right? There's continuous flow, and if you've got someone who can face with the customer, knows the lingo, and can have that conversation, that dialogue, it's, I don't know the exact percentage because it's so new, but it's powerful. There's a lot of potential.
I think I agree completely. A lot of what you just said, I think negative is it robotic, right? I think the other negative is people are scared of it because they don't understand it, which is a lot of people are scared of things they don't understand. But to piggyback off the positives, I also think speed, efficiency. That's what you talk about in terms of delivering the information. And the ability to summarize those key points for decision makers who analyze that, right? I don't think it's going to take that away. There's still going to be a need for it, but a lot of our clients are able to now see trends, see results, see data, and make a decision on anything from, do I want to spend on, how do I optimize my Facebook ads versus YouTube versus something else, and I got a real-time dashboard that's analyzing it, and now I can decide today maybe I put more gas here, maybe tomorrow I do more here, and it just helps it become faster, which should also, as I talked about before, lower the cost of acquisition and retention. Many of our clients use generative AI to create those avatars, and it helps them connect to people when they buy media on platforms and who they're marketing to. And that's just the tip. I know there's so much more that I don't even understand. But I think it's here to stay, and it's something that, if done right, should be much more positive than negative.
And I would also offer a word of caution, as we're considering using generative AI. Yes, there are these open source models, and we've got ChatGPT, of course. But what you put into it trains the model too. Your customer data, your IP, all that's going up there. So if you're going to do it right and protect yourself.
And to add to that, actually, one of the points that we had discussed even in the panel yesterday was about how do you protect PII, right? Personal identifiable information, and even creating things like synthetic data, where you mimic the data, but it's not the same data, right? So that way you still protect your customer information. So AI does not actually start acting and taking over some of the challenges and business information that you have, right? So those are some points to think about. Do you have any perspective on AI, Ethan or Tom?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's something we're actively exploring and interested in, but it's knowing if you look at it from a customer support perspective, where we should draw the line, because I can see huge benefits for it in terms of things like the speed of response and helping guide people through certain aspects of what we do. But I've worked in my industry for many years. I know other people who have as well, and there are certain questions that are so nuanced in how you need to answer them and how you need to not really give a straight linear answer, because it depends. When we're talking life safety, making sure we were drawing the line before it got to a point of actually telling somebody something that could be dangerous is super important. So I think we're kind of cautious, not just as an organisation but as an overall industry, because there are serious risks of if you take it too far. So for us, I think we're more exploring a little bit kind of front-end support, but we'll need to get to the point of saying, like, no, you need to stop and speak to a person. I don't know enough about AI myself, honestly, to know when it's likely to get to the point where we can go beyond that or if we can't. And that's kind of my take.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you?
I'll just say something real quick about it because I want to hear your questions. I will just say, for my world, AI is fundamentally incompatible with what we do. My business is called public relations, and it's not called robot relations, right? This is about people talking to people, right? You can't, at least the state of AI now is nowhere good enough to actually replace that. What it is useful for, what Paul was talking about, like doing a summary of a video, like somebody sends me a video, watch this, I can drop that into a generative AI platform and just get a recap, and instead of watching it, I can read a recap. Super helpful. Just make sure, if you're using that to send other people a summary, just make sure you check it first. Don't just do it and then just hope it's right, because these systems are often amazingly wrong, and they make a lot of mistakes. So just always double check the output.
I think from a corporate perspective, to your point, they can be wrong.
Yeah.
But if you're going to use it to accelerate ideation, brainstorming, have a panel of SMEs to be able to gut check it, fact check it, tailor it, what have you.
Yeah.
I think it's powerful in solutioning because it offers a human voice to research. And if you can integrate it and iterate with it, it could be a weapon.
Yeah. Agreed.
And even further to that point, there's often, when you make a decision, you look at, I got this idea, this idea, this idea, right? Pros and cons of all of them. And AI helps you do that research very, very instantaneously. Whereas in the past, even a year ago, 2 years ago, someone might have spent 6 hours on each thing coming up with what are the pros and cons, and AI might not be as in-depth or too in-depth because it's going to pull so much information.
Well,
And learning how to prompt it.
and I would throw this to the audience on the panel too. Challenge yourself, right? Ask a question to your AI, whatever you're using, in the voice of a SME in that field. Right. Tell me what you see. Right? I ask, hey, how do I build this AWS architecture to run a Vulgars, TTL of AWS? So, the nuanced answers, right, and the voice and the characteristic of the response is changed based on who and how you tailor your prompt. Right? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, actually that brings to the point that nowadays there's going to be some prompt engineering-based jobs so that you get the right prompts to get the right answers, right? So very interesting perspectives. As you can see, AI has a broad range of application across industries, across use cases, marketing being one of them. There's also sales, customer support, even in government, healthcare, all those areas there's going to be impact of AI. How many of you think that AI will impact your business? Show of hands. Yeah, quite a few, more than 50%. Yeah, certainly. We only have another 10 minutes or so. Any questions from the audience that we can answer? Yes, go ahead. Why don't you start in the back? Yeah.
So we talked a lot about customer experience and digital professional. What platforms do you guys recommend for really getting that feedback from your customers, or do they do things?
Yes. How do we get, what are some platforms you're using to get feedback? One tool is using like surveys, like several tools out there, SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics. Anybody want to add, like, how are you getting feedback?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a great question. Yeah, you repeated the question, right?
Yes.
Great question. Personally, I don't love using SurveyMonkey and stuff like that to ask for feedback. I think it's impersonal. And what we do with our clients, because feedback is really important, is we have once a month, we just do a check-in where we ask them, like, how's it going, what's going well, what isn't going so well, what can we do better. It's really worth it. I know it takes more, it's not as efficient as doing a survey and automating it, but I think having that human touch, people are going to be much more honest and genuine if they're talking to another person and if they're filling out a form.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd agree. We don't really use any particular platforms of that nature. We work in a world where a lot of the time we don't know who our end users are because there are several steps in the chain before we get there. So the people we do deal with, we have pretty long-standing relationships with them. We get that feedback through conversation, and it helps build the relationship and make us actually really be able to dig in and understand. So yeah, we don't really use anything, but I think that's partly to do with our business model.
Yep, makes sense.
I was going to add, I find it very valuable to often ask for the feedback when you've lost the opportunity. We're all in sales, we don't win 100% of the time. Many clients will appreciate if you ask them why. What could I have done differently to win your business? Quite often that'll open the door another time, or at least make them open to having that conversation with you the next time. As opposed to somebody who's happy with you right now, who is happy, but they also are getting something from you, so they may not be overly honest because they don't want to hurt themselves. And so I like give me the tough conversation. Tell me what you don't like about me, and I can learn about that, you know?
I agree. The comment I'd add to that is I think that's a great feed into the product development roadmap for what you should be doing next as well.
Yeah, and one other aspect to think about besides doing those in-person connections and asking questions both when you win or lose is also one thing that we do is we have product-led growth where we have about 300,000 customers who are on free trial for our product, and about 60,000 of them are paid customers. For those customers who are already in free trial, we even go and look at what are their behaviors, because sometimes the feedback is given even non-verbally, right? So if they select a certain set of features or certain set of steps before they actually convert, then that's a great feedback mechanism to find out what you have to do to a particular customer to get them to become paid customers. So that can be translated even to other businesses on how do you define that whole buyer journey so that you can get more people to convert and become your customers. I think there's a question here. If you don't mind getting the mic, thank you. There's this person with a mic. Yeah. Thank you.
So I had a quick question about, right now people go online and they read reviews before they make a purchase, right? Or before they decide, I want to do business with this company. With the advent of AI, how do you think we're going to transition to address an AI-focused search versus what used to just be kind of like a gut intuition search? Like, oh, they've got 5 stars, I'll buy this camera. Or, yeah, their Trustpilot says 2 out of 5, I'm not going to work with this company. You know, in the future, we're going to have to account for how AI reviews your company and spits out a purchase intent.
Interesting question. You got an answer? Okay. Well, okay, thanks for that great question. I'll just give you part of the solution. Nobody knows the full answer to that. It's so early, but in our world, where we're, setting up product reviews, what's really important is video testimonials, because you can't, there's deep fakes, but we're not really at a point where you can have a fake product review that's a talking head that's believable. So we tell our clients, don't just get those written reviews. We do deals with YouTubers and influencers and Instagram and TikTok to get video testimonials, and people Google, they see those. And we find those to be much more believable and genuine than something that's text, and less easy to fake.
So I would say to consumers going forward, rely on omni-channel source and input, right? Obviously, you can generate a Yelp review. You can generate anything, any kind of review, right? And say 5 stars and multiply it by a million different accounts. At what point do all of those start looking the same? Right? So I think, and this might be a good business opportunity for you, right? Create an algorithm that can analyze all these reviews and say, hey, that's false, that's false, that's false. Maybe that would be a service to just filter all that's coming in, so that's generated. And in fact, isn't there a ChatGPT 0 language model out there that actually can detect what is generated and what's not? So I think there's some sort of implementation that should be done to that regard. But I think omnichannel, and just be aware of what you're reading, right, from a consumer perspective. But to your point, right, from a corporation, we just gotta have to learn how to counter it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Great insights. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question for Paul. So, hi Paul, I'm curious, like I love TLC, I grew up watching TLC, instead of Disney I would watch TLC with my parents. So I'm curious, in the Netflix era, how did TLC like survive that dip, Because TLC is like, every show comes at a specific time, but like with Netflix, I can like watch whatever, whenever. So, did TLC lose like a lot of customers in the Netflix era? And like how did you cope for that?
So, great question. TLC, we're not the same as the Learning Channel. We're a marketing agency, sorry.
But I think to add to that point, right, the important thing is being where the customer is. So certainly businesses that are changing, in terms of the channel of acquisition, you need to be nimble to then adjust to what is the right place that you can find the customer. So that is a key takeaway there. Any other questions? Okay, I think we just have less than 5 minutes. So let's wrap up by giving 1 to 2 lines of final words of wisdom. Let's start with Ethan.
Okay, well, first, I want to thank everybody for coming to this. I thought this was a great discussion. I'm going to put it to you this way. I think Rich, you were saying something along these lines. Simplicity is key. There's one thing that I've learned, and I've been doing this for 25 years. You've got to keep it simple. Complexity is the enemy, and that's become more clear with each passing day. And when I have a customer that's confused or that's overwhelmed or doesn't understand something, usually the way that manifests isn't by them saying, Ethan, I'm confused and overwhelmed. It's by them disengaging. They're going to do something else. They're not even going to talk to me. They're going to do, I just hit my microphone. They're going to do something that's easier. That's just human nature. We do what's easy. So make your thing, whatever it is, make it easy, make it simple, reduce the friction, reduce the roadblocks, and I think you're going to have success. By the way, just to plug, I'm also doing a talk tomorrow morning. I'm doing the keynote, so come see me there. Thanks.
I'd actually echo that a lot. I mean, our tagline at Salmon is simply reliable. Simplicity is what we focus on, and making it very easy to say yes to choosing our company, choosing our product. Simplicity of choosing which product and not just having a mind-boggling range of things that you can't understand. It's drilling the language down into stuff that the customers actually will understand, not whatever internal language you might have that might just confuse them. And so I think it comes back around to what we discussed a lot earlier, which is know your customer, know their level of understanding, speak to them in their language, and make it very simple to say yes.
I'll go a step further and say know your stakeholders, your customer stakeholders, right? Because your technical people aren't going to necessarily have the business input about what they can afford, or what's too risky, or if they have an agreement with another partner, right? So just, you got to take a holistic view of your customer, right? And not just your point of contact to your point. But know your customer and tailor your approach.
I completely agree. I was going to actually say exactly the same thing. It starts with best understanding the person that you're talking to in the room at the given time, and how you can relate and understand and provide solutions to them that will work.
Excellent. I think to summarize what everybody said, my takeaway is know your customer, wow your customer, be your customer, right? So with that 3-point formula, you'll be able to get the right acquisition and retention. And another additional final point I'd like to leave is to also think about your own brand as a person. How would you like to be known? And think about how you're going to show up as your experience. So something to translate into a personal brand journey. So thank you so much for being with us here today. Love to give a round of applause for our wonderful panelists here.
All right, thank you again to our panelists for that last discussion. I'm sure you guys have all learned a lot of keynotes to take home with you. Now, next up, we have a keynote on the topic, Think Outside the Box. Brands and influencers creating a beneficial relationship together. I'm sure this one resonates with a lot of us at some level. Now, today, most of our audience is driven from social media, and most of marketing is done online. With the help of our brand influencers, such as myself, our speaker, Dr. Jocelyn Ramos Campbell, is here to tell us how brands can optimize their sales by investing in their relationship with media influencers. Now, let's dive into the details of this keynote by welcoming on stage Ms. Dr. Campbell, founder and president at Mommy Innovative Media, with a background as a federal government public relations executive under both Bush and the Obama administrations. She founded Hope Torchlighters. Now, Dr. Campbell is an award-winning and nationally known for expertise in multimedia marketing and advocacy for people with disabilities. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Campbell. You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to be talking about influencers. First of all, as a show of hands, has anyone here worked with influencers so far? Great. Now, does anyone consider themselves in this room an influencer right now? Okay, awesome. Does anyone right now think of themselves as an influencer because you got your kids to just go outside and take out the trash? There you go. You're an influencer right now if you did that. So as a show of hands, just right now, just applaud yourself. And if you don't applaud yourself, I am a therapist and I can work with you on that. So just applaud yourself anyway, okay? So, first of all, just as you heard of my background, I have been in public relations for a very long time. My background actually in education is in pre-law, but I have worked for 10 years as a public relations executive in the Bush and Obama administration. When I had my twins, after that I decided to go into myself to work in public relations, and I did marketing, I did online spokesperson for brands, so I have actually both, I've sat on both sides as an influencer, but also being on the side of working with brands, making those decisions of working with influencers. I've done television spokesperson, I've done that for most of my life, so I've done TV, I've done radio, print, and as a Latina online spokesperson and as an ambassador. So I have been on both sides of working as an influencer and working with brands to be the one to make those decisions. And as of last year, I was selected wonderfully, which was an honor to be given the Presidential Freedom Award as for self-sacrifice. The first recipient was Sarah Obama, the grandmother of President Obama. So I understand what it is to be on both sides of having those accountabilities, to having to say yes or no, to picking those people that are going to represent your brand, and then being the person to represent those brands. And one of the most important things is to find out who you want to work with. And to know who you want to work with, it depends on your business. You need to know what your business is. Who is your demographic? Who is your target audience? If you want to know what your influencers are, then you have to know what you're doing. What is your business? Who is your target audience? Who's your demographic? What is your niche? In order to find the people that you want to work with, then you have to know what you want to do first. So, who's your key demographics? Is it family? Are you looking for Latinos? Are you looking for the multicultural market? Are you looking for general market? Are you looking only for techies? Are you looking for the special needs, the disability market? Are you looking first to know who you are? When you know who you are, then you can know, all right, I've identified what we're looking for, then we can go to my brand. Who are we looking to reach out to? Who is that target demographic? What are our values? What are we trying to align with? Are we going for that families? Are we going for a certain lifestyle? Are we going for that niche market, which is that multicultural market? Are we going for the Hispanics? Are we going for that multicultural? Are we going for a specific subset group? What are our goals? What is actually also, is it our budget, because there has to be a budget attached to it. Is it awareness? Are we going for a long term? These are things you have to go into before you start reaching out to those bloggers, before you start reaching out to the influencers. Identifying those key goals when you're looking for the influencers and bloggers. What are we trying to accomplish? Is it only in the beginning awareness and traffic? A lot of times people think, well, we're definitely trying to just do awareness and traffic, but then they start thinking, well, wait a minute. I also want to do, first we want to do awareness and traffic, but we also want to increase sales, which of course we want to do that, but we also want to do some tickets and giveaways. But yeah, wait a minute, we also want to do some giveaways, and we also want to do some sponsored events. We also want to do, but they want to do that all in different segments and different ways. You have to know from the very beginning if this is going to be a long term, if this is going to be short term, and we need to have clear set goals before you start your campaigns and before you start your marketing initiatives. Because when you start in approaching and talking to bloggers and influencers, these key set goals need to be set out before you start reaching out to them. That is something that is very important. You need to set that precedent before you move and before you start working with them, because you are setting the goals for them. Remember that even though you do want to work with them and they know their goals and they know already because they are the subject expert matter, you are the subject expert matter in your business. So you need to tell them first what you want them to do. So you need to have these clear objectives of what you're willing to offer them before you reach out to them. One of the things we hear often, of course, is ROI, return on investment. But one of the most important things is ROR, return on relationship. This is something that is really big with influencers and really should be big with all of us as marketers and as sales. What is it that you're trying to accomplish when you're reaching out to those that you're trying to work with in that social media and digital marketing space? Are you trying to have a return on relationship? Is this something that you are trying to create? Are you trying to create just something that's going to be for a short term, or you're trying to invest in a relationship with marketers, with influencers, with bloggers that is going to be a long-term investment? So we like to say return on relationship. That was a phrase that was coined by Ted Rubin. Recommendations and referrals, social media and engagement, followers, fans, loyalty and repeat business, social sharing. This is something that you want to create with influencers and bloggers that can be a long-lasting relationship, not just something that is just going to be for a short term. You want to invest in them so you can get the best out of them. So ROI is the value that will accrue over time through connection, trust, loyalty, recommendations, and sharing. It's just like when you invest in a new client. You want to have and forge a relationship. Well, you're doing the same thing when you're investing with an influencer, a blogger. You want to invest in that relationship. You want to have that time with them. So you generate for the ROI, you listen to your customers and your followers. You deliver excellent customer service. You ask how your people want to be served. Remember the social part of social media. That's one of the biggest things that you see. When you want to go, you look at, just think about some of the pages that you have or some of your favorite pages. If you look at the content that's on there, it's not always sale, 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 sale. Look at Ford's Facebook pages. Look at some of your favorite Facebook pages and think about it. It's not always one long sales pitch because nobody wants to be sold to all the time. You want to be able to go to those pages and find organic content. You want to go there and see things that are not all just one long commercial. When you think about social, you've got to think about engagement. You've got to want people to come back to those pages and find things that has nothing to do with sales. Ford, we know, they sell cars. We all know that. But when you look at Ford's pages, it's not always about selling cars. Ford has things on there that have nothing to do with selling cars. They're talking about social justice. They're talking about social equity. They're talking about cultural history. They're talking about other things that have absolutely nothing to do with selling cars. Why? Because they want you to keep coming back to their page for lifestyle content. They want you to keep coming back to their pages for cultural history. Those are engaged pages. This is what you want with your content. This is what an influencer can do. And actually, Ford's social media team is actually derived by not only their in-house, but by many bloggers and influencers who are actually creating their content. I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about, as a Latina American woman, I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you right now about the Hispanic consumer. This is right now a huge market, multicultural market that many are not right now catering to. It's a $2.5 trillion market right now. Right now in the U.S., the Hispanic market is $2.5 trillion buying power. 1 in 4 Americans right now is a Hispanic, and 58% of the Hispanics in the U.S. are under the age of 34, right now in the U.S. Hispanics make up nearly 25% of the U.S. population. It is becoming one of the most influential and affluent in the U.S. market right now. One of the things that marketers think of, because it's the traditional sense, is that U.S. Hispanic, unfortunately, don't have, to be quite frank, they don't have money. The most underrated and the most, I am so sad to say, it is the most stereotypical of marketers to think that, when actually the U.S. Hispanic is the one that is driving the consumer base right now. Right now, Hispanics shop online and offline with realtors, and they resonate with the Hispanic cultures. 88% of U.S. Hispanics appreciate business that speak to them in Spanish, and 87% feel that Hispanic businesses that make a sincere effort to be part or invest in their communities deserve their loyalties. Before, it used to be okay to just put up Google Translate up on their websites and say, well, look, we translated the website, Google Translate's up there. That's not good enough anymore. You need to have, right now, your website, your basis, what you're delivering to your consumer needs to have El Sabor Latino, which is what we like to say is the Latino flavor. You need to have there something that resonates with your constituents. Everyone right now needs to have something that has something for the Latinos. If you don't have something right now on your website, on your socials, that does not resonate with the Latino consumer, then you are missing out on potentially millions of dollars for your business. Right now, music, humor, celebrities, all of that right now is what the Latinos are looking for. Family. Family is huge for Latinos. Right now, the acculturated Latino market is what we are looking at. Right now, in America, the digital Latino, I'm going to talk about the new digital Latina. She is a second or a first generation or third generation Latina. She's college educated. She owns a home before the age of 31. She's married with children. She's considered middle to upper class. She's on all social media platforms. She's living multiculturally because she's been born here, raised here. And she identifies herself as Latina or Hispanic American. Her allegiance is to the United States. But she is proud of her ancestral roots and of what her parents or her grandparents done. And she is the purse strings of the household. If you are not marketing to a Latina, and if you're not marketing to a Latino household who is now multicultural, she usually has an American husband, has bicultural children, then you are missing out on millions of dollars for your business. Finding your influencers. How do you find your influencers for your business? First of all, you check your insights. Look at all your social media, BuzzFeed, BuzzMo, all those kind of things. You look at all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those things are giving you right now all of your insights. You check your hashtag. If you're not using, first of all, if you're not using any customized hashtags for your business, please start using that right now so that you can check and track who's talking about your business, so you can find that out right now. When you find out who's talking about your business, you can do an easy SEO search of who is talking about your business so you can find out your influencers. When you do an SEO search, you can also find out not only who's talking about your business, but for the influencers, but what is generating for your business. When you find out what's generating for your business, you're not only finding out who the influencers are, but you can find out what is content is coming up for your business. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it niche markets? Is families talking about your business? Are competitors talking about your business? You want to find out exactly what is coming up when the reviews are coming up. Are they negative? Are there bots that are only talking about it? Is there video content that's coming up? Are marketers talking about you just organically? Are people putting up reviews organically? You are wanting to find out what kind of content is being generated just by doing SEO searches, doing customized searches. You want to find that out. You want to do what you're doing right now, which is you attending a conference, you're networking. That's how you find out who your influencers are. You also want to connect with blogger groups. These are some of the names of some blogger groups right there as well. You want to connect with those blogger groups to find out where the influencers are that can be part of what you want to do. 68% of social media influencers, that's no surprise, are female. 84% of brands polled said they launched at least one influencer marketing campaign and last year, and 81 of those brands saw increased website traffic and sales. 56% of female influencers view other influencers as being more akin to business partners and do not view them as direct competitors. That's something that is always, when people hear that, they're always like, they're not competitors. No, because they feel as when they work together, they do campaign parties together, they host parties, Twitter parties together, Instagram views together, they do work as networking groups together. 98% of mom bloggers follow brands on social media and learn about new products and information through their social feeds. 48% of female influencers post content up to 3 times a day. That is not paid content, that is organic content that they're doing already. So those content that they're doing already can be content that you hire them for. They're already doing the work already. So when they ask whether they tend to prepare content for a brand before posting it, 60% of females responded in the affirmative, including testing products. So they're already doing this content every single day, content that is not paid for. They're already doing that because this is what they do on a daily basis. You want to find out their relevance, their ongoing updating social media presence. They're already doing that. They're already creating content that offers and helps tips and resources. Real influencers, followers and likes. They're verified social media pages. What brands have they worked with? These are questions that you can ask as a brand. You can ask these questions. Engagement. It's not always about the numbers. Micro-influencers. I'd rather have an influencer that might have less than 10,000, less than 5,000. I'd rather have those than have someone that has over 1 million likes, have over 1 million likes on Instagram or 1 million followers on Facebook. Why? Because the one that has under 10,000, that has real engaged content, real comments, that's the one that has real engagement than the one that has 1 million likes but has a whole bunch of bots. That one is not going to bring me and to the brands. It's not going to make any influence. It's not going to make any decision makers. But the one that is engaged, the one that is making true comments, the one that I see that has only 5,000 likes, but I see that has 100 times, every time they make a comment, has 100 people liking, talking about that brand, is engaged content, that micro-influencer I will go with every time. Because the other people that's great that you have 1 million likes, but no one posts anything. When they post up a picture, those are bots. I'd rather go with the person that's a micro-influencer. That's real conversation. Pitches. As a brand, you will always get, a lot of times you'll get pitches. You're going to get media kits. You're going to get people that want to work with you. So what do those pitch look like when you get those? How do you know what's a good pitch? How do you know what's a bad pitch? This is an example of a good pitch. The name, short introduction, this is the name of a blogger. They explain to you what that blog is, the services they can provide to you. This is what they're going to tell you, what their blog is. Here's the customized hashtag. They're going to want to tell you what their blog is, what they can offer you, who are other blogs or services that they have worked with. They're going to show you what their scope of work is. That's very important. If they're a professional blogger, professional influencers, they should have worked with other companies. Let them show you that portfolio. And they want to build a relationship with you. Here's a link to their media kit. If they're professional, they should already have that. So that's a good pitch. And then, always important, when they finish a pitch, they should have all their social media content. You should not have to be looking around all over the place for where they have their social media contact. All of that should be in one email to you, because as a professional you might not be the only one that has to send that up the authority chain to get that approved. So everything should be in one email, easy for you as the brand to see. All in one email. Bad pitch, and this was actually a real pitch that I received. Dear blah, 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 I love your site. I have a huge following. Great. No backup with that. Traveling full-time, my readers love to travel. I write about blah, 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 blah. In exchange for this 2-hour tour, I can guarantee 17 blog posts and 40 social media mentions. 17 blog posts and 40 social media mentions for a 2-hour tour. Thanks, first name only, which was Jackie. She's not here, so I can say that. So, never says the name of the blog or attaches a media kit or mentions stats. Closing with no details. Thanks, but no thanks, Jackie. That's a bad pitch. Don't say yes to this. Everybody say no. Say no, shake your heads. I don't like how you're doing this. Say no. No, thank you. We don't want that. This is how these media kits should look like. They should have the data that matters. They should be giving you all of these stats, their followers, their audience profile, their readership, if they have media appearances, all of that. All of that should be in there when they send that to you. As a professional, just the way you have to send contracts, just the way you have to back up your work, the same way they should be sending that to you, data that matters. All of that should be sent to you. How can we work together? It should be content creation, partnerships, collaborations, website takeover, brand ambassadorships, all of that should be sent to you. Ways of working together, clear points of contact. Let them be creative. Make those approvals painless, quick and painless. Aim for long-term relationship with the brand and not just the agency. Content collaboration. They're the ones that are subject matter. Give them the freedom to do what they have to do. You want to invest in a long-term partnership and not just a one-night stand. This is what you want to do. You want to invest in them, and so they can invest with you. They're the ones that know what they want to do. Time is money. Time is money for you. Time is money for them. So plan for an overall budget when you're working with them. Figure out the materials and costs. If it's a per project rate, if it's an hourly rate, figure out what is working for your company and give them a standard pay for them. Let them figure out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you don't want to be giving them a, hey, we'll do this for an Amazon gift card. Those days are long over with. Negotiating. Understands that influencers are expecting a reasonable and appropriate pay for work. Good faith estimate. Don't offer low incentives like the free coupon. There has to be a benchmark of what is appropriate for you and what is appropriate for them. So expect to negotiate, open dialogue for a mutually beneficial relationship. Be clear in those contracts and agreements. Is it exclusivity? Are you having a non-disclosure agreement? Do you expect them to have a non-compete if they're working with you? Can they not work with your competitor? Is there a number of blog posts, social media posts? What is it that you're expecting from them? Video or live content? Is it grants and rights of use material? Is travel involved? Payment schedule? All of that should be very clear in your contracts and agreements. Think ahead and outside the box. Creative concepts and ideas. Now you're leveraging their unique talents and passions, and you're maximizing your profits. There are the collaborate with the subject matter experts. They're the storyteller and the creator. Their blog, media coverage, they know their business the same way you know your business. So you want to actually collaborate with them as you know your business and let them do their business. But always knowing that you are in charge of your business, they are in charge of their business, but you two want to create that beneficial relationship together. I'm going to give you a case example here. McDonald's. This was CFO Me Encanta, which is Central Florida Me Encanta, which is I'm loving it in Spanish, which is McDonald's catchphrase. McDonald's was launching a new healthy 300-calorie meal, the banana nut the blueberry banana oatmeal across McDonald's location. Their emphasis was on Hispanic and multicultural communities. They had not done anything in Central Florida to raise and increase awareness to their McDonald's Spanish social media accounts, Me Encanta, and they hadn't done any type of digital marketing, and they wanted to do an event in Florida, but their caveat was they didn't think that Hispanics and that whole entire very transient area of Orlando, because we have so many travelers come in, I don't think that's going to fly in Orlando to have that healthy new blueberry oatmeal. People are probably not going to be interested, even though they have one of the largest McDonald's play areas and one of the largest McDonald's in Central Florida. I proposed to them, why don't we bring a proposal to bring awareness to the importance of healthy breakfast menu options at McDonald's. Let's have a 2-hour family-friendly event at your location. We'll bring in some bloggers. We'll do a live social media, and we'll do it on a weekend instead of a weekday. And we'll have a Twitter party, we'll have options, we'll have kids come in, and we'll have some social media influencers, including we'll have some actual people from the government come in as well. And we'll track it on social media and we'll report back to McDonald's. They agreed on it. They've never done one of those before. They thought maybe not in Orlando because it's, all the travel and stuff and so many people from outside. But they agreed to it. They said, all right, let's do it. So they came up with an invitation. I invited the bloggers. We had attendees from Central Florida bloggers, community leaders, Chamber of Commerce. Family-friendly event was held at the largest location. Attendees and the families received swag bags, contained healthy products, yoga mats, water bottles, all of that. Attendees were treated to arcade games. Kids loved all of that. And then they also not only had the blueberry, but then they also had the healthy menu selection. It was 9:30 to 11:30, but the family stayed until 2. About 200 people were in attendance. The goal was to create a family-friendly event, and the weekend experience is what changed it, because many of the events they were always trying to hold was during the week. That's why you have to know your customer and know thy market. As they said here on the panel before, know the customer, know thy market. Having it on the weekend changed the entire perspective, because having it on the weekend meant what? No one had to change their schedule during the week. Families were able to come. We had a live Twitter party, social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that. It opened it up not only to Central Florida, but to obviously being online to a greater national following. Invited social media and bloggers were posting positively before, during, and after. People online were following the hashtag engagement. Within 30 minutes, it became trending online, the hashtag. We had over 1 million impressions. Rapid increase, and the Orlando, Florida Business Journal picked it up and said why Central Florida companies should be building relationships with bloggers. That is where we're talking about doing something outside of the box. When you do things outside of the box, things can work, but you have to be open to creating those synergies and creating those opportunities to think outside of the box. We've got 2 minutes left, so I want to just be transparent, set expectations, and work together, give positive feedback and constructive input, be accessible, give immediate notification of any changes or delays or expected delays, and of course you want to follow the FTC guidelines. Ethical, always, making connections and becoming a resource, taking extra initiatives, coming up with solutions to improve business relationship, and bring new ideas to create business and offer content services, whether it's writing, photo, video, or consulting. I want to just wrap this up, and I don't want to belabor the time more to give anyone any information, time to give any questions or answers right now. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. Yes, sir. I think they're going to give you a mic.
I was wondering, contracting influences.
Yes.
What went wrong with the Bud Light influencer? And because it looked like a lose-lose situation instead of a win-win situation.
Yeah. Part of that with the Bud Light was the way they delivered that information to the influencers. Also, the way they went about that in the beginning with the Bud Light and the way they streamed that, Bud Light they've done a lot of great content, but the way they selected the influencers, the way that was portrayed in the media, they've had to do a lot of backtracking on that. And so that was not done in the most efficient and ethical manner as well. So they have now had to backstep all of that. And so unfortunately, when you do things like that without also covering your bases, without having those team meetings that are so important before you publicly state that, they're learning that the hard way, that they should have not done that. So that's been a big lesson for them in PR.
And I'm sorry, Doctor, that's the only question we have time for.
Okay, thank you. And anyone in those pink bags is my contact information if anyone wants to meet with me or chat with me. That has all my info. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you again so much, Dr. Campbell. That was an amazing session there. Now, moving on, we have a panel discussion that will surely grab the attention of the entire room. Now, yes, I'm talking about a much controversial topic today that all social media and digital media marketers would like to hear insights about. Should we use AI for content marketing? Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to find out all of your answers in this amazing panel discussion on the topic, to AI or not to AI for content. CEO experts share their research. Now, please help me welcome to the stage our panelists, Ms. Amanda Bernard, Chief Marketing Officer at One Click Technology Group, Mr. Ryan Brock, Chief Solution Officer at Demand Jump, Ms. Catherine Montgomery, Founder and CEO of Better Together, and also, last but definitely not least, we have Ariana Lupai, I hope I pronounced it right, is CEO, Consultant at Aperdio CEO. The stage is all yours, guys.
All right. Man, AI, right? Reviews on LinkedIn, right? So we're all sick of this already, but here we are talking about it still. I think that's what makes this such an interesting panel for me anyway. As a moderator, I am personally talking about AI constantly and hating every moment of it. And that's why I'm so excited about this panel, because I know that the experts we have here are actually very nuanced and thoughtful people that are going to say more than just do it or don't. And that's really what's important. We're getting to a stage now where the market's getting comfortable. We're looking at the actual impacts of AI, not just the suggested impacts of AI. So I am personally excited to lead a conversation here with these three wonderful, intelligent thought leaders and to just dive into AI specifically related to content, which is, I think, the real place where everyone looks and sees dollar signs and they see save time and they see all this, easy ways to the end. But in any case, I think before we really dive into the topic at hand, we should take a moment to introduce ourselves and share a little bit of our backgrounds and, what gives us the right to sit on this stage. Because I believe this is the most fun topic as well as the most overwrought in digital marketing, because kind of nobody's an expert, right? Like, we're all figuring this out together. I don't know, Amanda, you might be a little bit of an expert on the technical side. You're impressive on that side. Right? You want to start us off and work our way down the line to introduce ourselves?
I'm Amanda Bernard. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at One Click Technology Group. I've been doing digital marketing for over 14 years now. More specifically, we do quite a bit with AI, whether it's in the marketing end or even just playing around with it in terms of programming and seeing the code that it's producing.
We also have been working closely with a couple clients, building custom API integrations as well.
Great. I'm Catherine Montgomery. I'm the founder and CEO of Better Together. We're a full-service communications firm that focuses on social impact. And I use AI every day throughout my workday. I think it has been a challenge for my employees deciphering, do I just copy and paste what is in ChatGPT or do I put some thought into it? And so it's definitely a learning opportunity. It's going to take a while for them to get used to, but it's a nice challenge, and I say embrace it, and let's do it.
Also, as an aside, just because I said something nice about Amanda, Catherine, your logo is like the coolest logo I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Better Together. It's just so, I feel like it's like a hug or something, and I really appreciate that. I just want to say that.
Awesome. My name is Ariana. I was born and raised in Venezuela. I've been doing SEO for the past 6 or 7 years, more or less. And I'm an SEO consultant. I also teach SEO in Spanish, so I have my own platform called Aprendo SEO. It's hard to pronounce. But my mission is to bring SEO to the Hispanic community, especially in Latin America, which there isn't that many resources in Spanish to learn SEO. So in terms of AI, since my SEO services or my expertise lies on content strategies and content research, I'd say I use it on a daily basis to create outlines, drafts, and overall optimizations.
I am constantly overwhelmed by SEO, even though I consider myself an expert, and I'm only doing it in one language, so mad respect on the can of worms that opens up trying to move between those two worlds. That's awesome. So you've all heard me talk like 4 times this week, so I'm Ryan Brock. I'm the Chief Solution Officer at Demand Jump. I owned a content agency for 10 years. I'm actually all about the creative writer as a professional, so it's funny because AI is like the enemy kind of, but I love it. And I'm now actually in charge of product at a SaaS company that enables writers to do good work. So AI is a big part of my conversations every single day as well. Now, what we're going to do here is we're just going to sort of move through what I see as sort of a spectrum of the impact of AI on our lives. And I'd like to start by talking about not marketers and what we're doing as marketers and the tactics we might employ with AI, but actually begin the conversation with a little look at how our average consumer, or even just broader individual, is changing their behavior on the internet in the face of AI. So, Catherine, you mentioned that you've already been using AI in your daily life, and I know that you're not necessarily using it to just produce content and do marketing. You're doing a lot with AI, it sounds like. So, can you walk us through a little bit of your life? What changes have you already seen? Not that you're excited for, but you're already living in that future right now.
Yeah, from my perspective as an agency or what my clients are doing.
I would like both of those perspectives. I think they'd both be really valuable.
Yeah. What I've started doing just on a daily basis with using AI when it comes to writing is I write the content myself. So I like to write an op-ed myself, and then I'll say, this could probably be better. And so what I've started to learn, especially with ChatGPT, is I'll say, ChatGPT, pretend like you're a Black woman who owns Better Together as a founder, and we focus on social impact. And then I copy and paste the op-ed into ChatGPT, and I say, make this better. And then it'll come back, and it'll be awful. But there'll be some parts of it that I'm like, that's really good. I can take that and replace it. And so it's like I take my original copy and add something to it, add some flair to it that I wouldn't have thought of. I think the key is that I can't just start from nothing, because if I do, it's not going to be anywhere near my voice. It's not going to be anything of what a client would want. And so, say it is a client who I'm working with, I would say, pretend like you're Laura Crandon, who works with Touch for Life, and I'll put a link to her website so we have background on the website, and then I'll put the op-ed or whatever piece it is and say, make this better. And so it's not, for me, it can't be just a blank page, really. It has to start from somewhere, or it'll be totally off point. I think from a client's perspective, they really have not embraced AI. They really lean to us for the expertise, and they haven't been like, I can just write this myself. I can just do this myself. I think they kind of know that AI won't give them what they need, and it takes really having a partnership, a relationship, and bond to write content that reflects their mission and goals.
Interesting. Ari, I'm going to shift to you now. What about like the way people consume information? Let's forget remarketers for a moment. Do you see in your interactions with just the world, are there already changes in the way people use search engines, the way people go find answers to their questions? Like, is this as big of a change as we think, or do you think there's still a long way to go before the general populace is ready to like ask a robot a question rather than an algorithm?
So I think people are starting to adapt to ask questions with AI. Like instead of it's a very, in my opinion, it's a very small percentage of people are replacing search engines with actual AI platforms. But I think the types of questions and the types of queries or keywords that are being replaced are more like long-ended questions, like how to do this, or give me 5 steps. For example, I did ask ChatGPT a few weeks ago to create like a meal plan for me. So that's a query that might take traffic from search engines and blog posts, etc., to the AI. So I think that like those types of questions are being replaced. However, there's tons of other like questions, concerns, or queries more like in the middle of the funnel or bottom of the funnel that I don't think they can be replaced because it takes, there's a lot of information, or like, for example, products or reviews that AI will be extremely biased or won't have the answers to those things. So in that sense, I think people are we have to adapt to more like a hybrid of how people are searching for things, where they search for specific things. If it's a product or a service, they might use search engines if it's a question. And also in terms of like search engines, I think the way people are expecting to get results are not like blue links and written text anymore. I think like we as marketers and SEOs, we need to adapt more like videos, infographics, and it's more like a holistic approach to SEO rather than just like blog posts and written text.
There are like 5 things I want to double click on in there. But before we go any further on any of those pathways, Amanda, I want to come back to you because you're in a unique position as a digital marketer, but also as someone who works for an organization that empowers people to customize AI and use it in very specific ways. What are you seeing? Like from a business standpoint, we talked about consumers, we talked about marketers. From a business standpoint, like what is your organization seeing out there? People are obviously early adopters jumping right on AI. What are they doing with it?
I mean, literally everything. There's no one thing that they're developing. Every day, you can go on and see the latest AI tech that some software company has developed. But what excites me more is what the smaller companies are doing and how they're really approaching it so that they're targeting their actual clients more. A lot of our clients still are super scared of it though. But also they're super scared of their own computers. So you can't really change that overnight.
How are they targeting their customers, like using AI?
I mean, you're taking huge data sets, you're drilling it down. You can pretty much segment however you want now, and it's just that micro targeting.
So what's interesting about that is I think we think about big data and we think about content as kind of 2 different things, but we're starting to get to a point where the lines are being blurred, where all of this is in an effort so that we can create better messaging, talk to the right people with content, whether that content's a long-form blog post, a video, customer service message. We're just trying to cut through the noise, and AI seems to be a really good fit for that.
Yes.
So what are the risks? Let's go there. I like to talk crap about AI and beat on it a little bit. It's strong enough. It needs to be taken down a peg, in my opinion. What are the risks? Like, we're all getting ready to jump in and do this. We've all been playing around with AI. What have you seen? Like, have you, any of you, and I'll open this up to all of you, where have you run into something where you're like, I don't know about that. That seems a little bit risky to me.
I think the funniest part is when people are using it and then not checking their actual content, and then you still see the prompt in their content that they just blasted out.
So,
Outstanding.
prompt, like, act as Catherine and tell me about something. And then it's right there. So that's great.
I had Bard tell me recently that I won an award that I've never won.
Oh, nice.
I thought the easiest way to check if Bard was smart was to ask it about myself. And it seems to be like, listen, whatever the top 5 results say about anyone named Ryan, I'm just going to scout right back to you. But I did end up using that content, promoting it everywhere, just because if the AI thinks I won an award, I feel like I deserve it.
Wait, so you acted like you won it?
No, that was a joke. That does seem to be the level of criticism people are taking with this output, right?
I had a situation with headshots, so everybody was getting headshots done by AI, and I was like, well, this seems like, $49, get 200 headshots, that'd be great. and then I didn't notice any people of color on the website, and so I emailed the creator of the app, and he was like, oh yeah, we forgot to put black people on the website. And then 2 minutes later, they put this one guy on there, but it was like, it doesn't even look real, so I feel like it's really taking time for them to, recognize other features.
Did you try buying it? You see what
We would need to do that for free.
Well, there's another risk. I still want to stay on risk, but we have a question on here that's like too perfect as a jumping off point from there. It seems to me, I don't think we need to get political here, but it seems to me that if the goal of an AI is to find the consensus viewpoint on any topic and put it out there, the likelihood of the person who wrote that consensus viewpoint looking like me is pretty strong. So what's going on there? I mean, have you seen, any of you, but Catherine, I know that this is something that we've talked about a little bit. Have we seen problems there where the bias is there and even risk for amplifying voices above others in a really disadvantageous way?
Yeah.
Are we seeing that with AI?
I think that's why I have to start with content, especially for my clients that are focused on social impact. So when it comes to political topics like gun control and affirmative action and things like that, I have to put the content in there first, or it is going to come up with something that's ridiculous, and I'm not going to be able to use it. So I do think that it's learning. The more we use it, the more it's going to learn, the more diverse it's going to be. But you have to be very, very diligent and smart about knowing what to accept and what not to accept. So I do think it's very biased, but it does help with cleaning up your writing. So you have to give and take with it. Anyone else?
So, bias in AI has been around for quite some time. But with ChatGPT, you can at least start training some of that away. I'm not saying it's all going to go away, because, like Ryan said, most of the content has been written by white males. But there's ways to augment that a little bit. You're still going to have to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, because it's still going to be God knows what. But at least it's learning more. Yeah. And more efficiently than when Google had the Twitter that got shut down within a day.
The Microsoft one?
Microsoft.
Yeah, that was train wreck.
Yes.
Okay, I want to follow up on something you just said, because I love the technical angle that you come from here, because it's the opposite of mine. But like you said, that there's been bias in AI for years. Can you give examples? It feels like AI just happened 5 minutes ago.
So facial recognition software has been around for decades. There are studies from MIT that have shown that the facial recognition software, number one, really only works for white males. Then going down the list, it's white women, and then it's lighter colored African American women, and then it's just nothing. You're lucky if you even get picked up. There's a great documentary that was on Netflix about it as well.
Yeah, but it's been so long, so why is it taking so long to correct?
Yes, the developers.
It seems like it's a volume issue, right? It's so much easier to just take unreviewed, unanalyzed data sets and just use them as learning models. And at the end of the day, if people are being critical, then yeah, it's going to just default to whatever the default has been. And I think that's interesting because we're talking a lot about AI as if it is somehow intelligent. And it's only as good as what's put into it. It's only as good as what it has available. Even if it has up-to-date information available, it still starts handing out awards to people who don't deserve them, right? So it's really important that we think about when we ask it for help with something, what the absolute outer limits are of its ability to answer that question. Because sometimes it can answer the question in a way that feels very confident. Like, I'm the kind of guy, I got a confidence that can make it sound like I know what I'm talking about anytime. And I only do about 25% of the time. And I think that's true for AI as well, probably because it was trained on white men like me. So when we're writing our content, I mean, isn't the point to not have to try so hard when we're writing AI content? Like, isn't that the point? Ariana, I'm going to pick on you. Like, do I really need to be critical, or can't I just rely on this to do my job for me?
No,
that was a really softball question for the record.
I don't think we can rely at all. I think it's not only like it's picking up responses from content that's created by white men, but also like the algorithms most of the time and the programs are created by also like white men. So I think that's something we have to consider. And I wanted to follow up, like how can we maybe understand which ways can we report these answers, or how can we, besides like just training our own like data, I'm not sure how we can like report things in the different platforms, or if that gets anywhere. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know that I have been able to report and flag information as incorrect. Whether they do anything with it, I'm not sure. But I did cut you off, Amanda, from talking about training your own AI. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I mean, can I just do that, or what is the process there?
So it depends on the platform that you're using. In ChatGPT 3, it's a little bit more difficult. We use some platforms that help with that, including Buildable. But if you have a great programmer that's on staff, they can really help you with all the technical
So
stuff.
if you have development resources on your team, it is worth looking into what it would take to
Yes, absolutely.
sort of smarten up your specific
And they're
instance.
diverse, like the developers, are they diverse people, backgrounds, ages?
No. But, I mean, most developers, at least in Northeast Ohio, are in that same white male, likes video games.
Yeah, so I guess
The normal
it's like you need to be aware of the bias that you can have, and even if you are a white male, as long as you know, hey, I'm probably being biased, I should.
Well, it seems to me that, like, AI is no different than any one of us at the end of the day, right? Like, I think just because I am a white male, for example, and I want to say that we had a fifth panelist who was going to be the moderator, we specifically didn't want the one white male to be moderating this panel. I recognize the irony in this. We chose you. Yeah, they forced me to do this. But, like, that doesn't mean that I go out there and just say my perspective is the only one that matters. And in fact, any business that's good at communication, good at content, good at marketing, whether we're talking about those kinds of topics or just your industry and expertise and the technical aspects of what you do, it requires expertise to produce good content. And so the notion that you can just take something off the shelf, just like you couldn't take a writer off the shelf who has no idea what your industry is, no idea who your audiences are, and expect great things, really can't do that. I mean, this is a powerful, powerful tool, but it's only as good as the input that it gives. So along those lines, I'd like to talk about prompting, because I think prompting ends up playing a big role in how we control the output that we get. I've heard a few of you mention pretend to be this. Is that your go-to? Is that how you start? Like, Catherine, is that how you start usually?
Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty new to prompts. I didn't even know that it was a thing until pretty recently. And I can tell a difference between saying be this expert and be this expert or whatever, like the difference in tone. Sometimes it does say, if I say, pretend to be a black woman, it'll say, as a black woman, like in the rain. And that's like not what I meant for you to do. So it works sometimes. I think, again, it's something that it's learning to do, but there are lots of prompts, and I think that's a helpful place to start, rather than just from scratch, or like any person, But if it's a white male being a black woman, I don't really know that it's helpful.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever written words as a black woman.
Something I've done sometimes for clients that have specific tone of voice or values, I just, remind, within the prompt, usually doesn't work for me if I keep, for example, in ChatGPT, the same chat, doesn't usually pick it up. I have to remind, remember the values are like this, the tone of voice is this, and they usually maybe 5 times better, but most of the time, take a lot of editing at the end. But at least reminding, what's the tone, what are the values, and what's the goal. I like to add the goal, the prompt, write this with this goal. Not only write this in X amount of characters, but also adding the goal, I think helps it understand, where this is going.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And for the record, I don't find myself ever really using GPT or any other AI to write content. I think it's pretty well established at this point, based on everything we're saying, that wholesale, that's not enough. And a lot of people will use it to get started and work from there, and that's, I think, a very good way of going about it. For me, when I think about prompting, the prompts that I've arrived at are really, really hyper-focused. The things that take me the most time when I'm writing content it's just research. It's just finding that golden nugget that I want. If you're a scientist, I understand that what I'm saying is the opposite of true science. Finding the quote that matches my theory is not necessarily good. But I'm a writer and I got stuff to do, right? If I've got a job to accomplish, I know that if I'm writing about marketing, that I could probably find a really good stat on whatever my topic is in a HubSpot report or in a LinkedIn report or whatever. Yesterday in my presentation that I gave, I had a stat on screen about how 33% of marketers don't ever check the ROI on their content. I could have taken 30 minutes to find that, or I could go to GPT and say, hey, do you have any statistics on how marketers think about ROI in content? And I found that it's actually really, really good at that. When I ask for a specific, I try to stay as broad as I can while being specific on the kind of stat I'm looking for. And I'll generally get something useful, and I found that is a really nice shortcut in the creative process for content to save me some time and get something done a lot faster. Do you all have any silver bullets like that?
Do you double check the stats?
Oh yeah, what I do is I demand a source, and then I go to the source and I review it. So they'll never share the source at first, but if you ask for it, then it'll provide it. And if you can't provide it, then it probably made it up.
Yeah, okay.
But Jenny, if you have any of those silver bullets, here's a good prompt that I can just take and it's going to make my content job easier?
Yeah. So I have a couple that, depending on what it is, if it's a social post, I'm the first to admit I hate social media, so the fact of having to ever do it is the worst for me. So I use it a lot for that because I just don't like it. And it's great for the hashtag research because that's so time consuming. So I do have a really great one that I just copy and paste and change a couple things and then go.
Well, what is it?
Well, so I normally start out as, let's say I was doing it for one click. You're Amanda Bernard from One Click Technology Group. We are a holistic web development and marketing agency. I don't have the exact wording in front of me, so I'm trying to, you just put out this blog post about X, write one for LinkedIn with a serious undertone, one for Facebook with a fun undertone, and one for Instagram that's just silly. Go.
That's good. That's good. I think my biggest use case part of SEO, coming up with frequently asked questions or just FAQ schema. Frequently asked questions and outlines, I request outlines sometimes with specific headings, hierarchy, and meta titles and like in bulk. That would be it.
Super helpful.
Yeah. You did mention not just copying and pasting the content. I have had instances where job candidates have submitted writing tests that they've done completely on ChatGPT, and I can tell as soon as I start reading it that they copied and pasted. And I'll put it in ChatGPT and say, "Did you write this?" And they're like, "Yes, I did write it." And then I go, and I go back to the candidate, and I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe ChatGPT is wrong, but it seems that this was copied and pasted. And some are like, "Oh, I'm so offended." And then some are like, "Yeah, I did." But it's just so crazy. You really cannot just copy and paste. You have to use prompts. You have to be authentic or genuine or unique or something when it comes to AI.
So what's the difference? What's the difference between copying and pasting and actually using it to an end? I mean, I guess the question that I'd like to ask is, do any of you feel like your human creativity is at risk here?
No.
No.
I'd say no. I have a list for SEO of things that AI can't do properly. For example, we've talked about content, but we haven't touched, for example, like internal linking or anchor text. Yeah, like optimizing anchor text or the strategic part of it. So to an extent, you can use AI to assist like the content writing process. But for example, like heading hierarchy, internal linking, navigation structure, even like backlinks, like that's like an email back and forth. Like even if you automate that process, you can't get it done. So there's a few things that you can get assistance from, but not necessarily like completely. At some point I thought my job was at risk, like when the hype happened, like December, January, I'm like, okay, I'm done. But then later, like learning how to use it and learning, I can do it and can't. Yeah, I don't think like 100% it won't replace us, but I think we do have to learn how to use it for assistance because the competition is going to like get over and use it as well.
Yeah, something that I've found myself saying quite a lot is that all of my math teachers when I was in school were idiots. Mostly because I hate math, but also partly because they all told me I wouldn't have a calculator available to me at all times. And of course they were wrong. But more than that, I had Excel. Like I got like pivot tables. Like what I need to do, I don't need to think about ever. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because I have a calculator or you have a calculator that I'm going to suddenly be able to become like a Nobel Award-winning physicist, or I'm going to be able to make some amazing discovery out there in the stars. Like the tool itself is not an advantage, and I feel like right now there is an advantage to be had at leveraging AI properly, but in a long enough time frame, that AI is not in and of itself like a competitive advantage, like you said. Like everybody's going to be using it, so now it's a question for me about like how do I get rid of the boring parts of telling a story so that I can focus on the creative parts, because that's where that Nobel Prize winning work happens.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. There's so many other skills that come into writing. Coming up with the ideas, putting in the right order, editing, sharing, who you share it with. There's just so many elements to it that an AI tool can't do all at once. It takes human beings, it takes original thought. And so I definitely don't see our jobs going anywhere.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I think my world that I live in is organic content, so more than anything, like I think it's super important for people to understand that notion of if everybody's doing it, it's not an advantage. It's super, super real when it comes to SEO. Google went from don't do it to, okay, you're going to do it. So, like, if you're going to do it, make sure you're doing it to help you produce really great, helpful, insightful content. And I think that is basically them saying don't do it unless you're doing it for the right reasons. Like, a lot of people out there who want to use GPT to just replace the writing process are going to find that, like, if Google's job is to figure out who's the most authoritative source on the topic, GPT is not the most authoritative source on that topic, right? Like, you will not deserve position one in the traffic that comes with it if you're just trying to shortcut the game and just get to the end and win. But if you are a thought leader, if you have perspective, if your organization can actually provide solutions through even organic content before you're selling anything, and GPT can get you more efficient, can help you do it at a greater scale or a faster clip, you're probably going to have a competitive advantage there, especially right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like harder for us to compete with everyone because if we're all going to be doing the same things, it's going to be hard. But if we do it like 10 times better, as you said, like adding like authority, like really creating actual value beyond what GPT or any AI tools giving us, I think it's going to be worth, it's going to be 10 times harder after AI. But if you do it like 100 times better than everyone else, you're going to get probably like 1,000 times the result. So I think Google's going to reward whoever creates valuable content, besides if it's like from AI or not, like what actually brings value, and I think the focus is going to be a lot of authorship, like who is creating this, has this person created like articles, what's more or less the voice or the expertise that this person has. So I'm predicting like Google's going to take a closer look on authorship, because if not, everyone's going to be an expert on everything, and that's like goes against what Google wants when people
And I
have
think that's what they do now, right? It's like who writes the content, the keywords you're using.
The extra E sort of represents this. Like, are you an actual expert on this or not? Do you have experience on this or not? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think those not using AI are going to be really, 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 really behind, and they're going to lose. You have to embrace it and figure out how to adapt it and make it your own. But if you don't, I mean, people are just going to surpass you, I think.
It's like refusing to use a calculator.
Right.
Or being made
Not
to
that I know how to
not use
use
a
one.
calculator on a math test when you just have a perfectly good calculator sitting right there.
I still don't know how to use mine.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how to use a calculator at all. So it wouldn't help me pass a math test either. To that end, and in the spirit of leaving time for some questions here, let's wrap up our discussion. Maybe Amanda will start with you. We'll work our way down the line, not to put you all on the spot, but we've talked about GPT like 4,000 times. I've heard Bard come out of my own mouth. Are there any other AI content tools that you're using that you can recommend to our audience here that can help them?
So I use Buildable AI. I also have a couple other programs that are more internal use for the company. And then just Dolly, Midjourney, the normal players.
Beautiful.io is really good for making slides. And Jasper is really good at content as well. So I think those are two I use pretty often.
I've been using Copy AI to write like copy headlines. There's one called Tommy app, creates like slides. You just add a topic and I can add up from there. And I've been trying Jasper in the past week as well. Pretty good for like social posts, etc.
I've been having a lot of fun with the Photoshop beta, if you use Adobe. The generative fill is like actually pretty good, especially if you're trying to do something simple. It takes, I know how to use Photoshop, I've been doing it for years, but it's still sort of a pain sometimes to like clip a subject and take, remove the background, do these things. These things are like a click with Photoshop, which I love. And then there's two other tools that I use, Descript, which is a video editing software, really, really powerful stuff. It takes your raw video, auto-generates a transcript, and then you can edit the video by editing the text. You like literally just edit the text, and you can even record your voice and create or whoever the speaker's voice is, and create an audio mimic of yourself. So like you could, if you need to replace or rewrite some part of your video, you could throw some B-roll on and then have yourself continue talking and rebalancing over it, which is really fun. And then Casted is a podcast platform that parses audio content and helps you make clips of it and generate automatic little snippets of content to use in social media and stuff like that. So if you're like me and you've got like way too much podcast footage to do anything with and you want to reuse it, it's a really good tool. My clock says 13 minutes, but I think I saw that we only have like no minutes. Where are we at?
I don't think he said it.
We have 13? Yeah. Cool. I thought I saw you doing this, so I just wanted to make sure. That was what I hoped that we would have time for some questions, because I think that this is a topic a lot of people have questions about. So unless any of you have any final words, I'd like to open it up for...
I will just say futurepedia.com is really good. So it's a place where they have all of the different AI tools in one place. So instead of like an encyclopedia, it's Futurepedia, and it's very, very, very helpful also.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, questions then. What you got? We got a mic coming. Hold on, I'm deaf.
Thank you. You were talking about that video AI, but I didn't catch the name of the one that you were talking about.
Descript. Descript, like description without the I on at the end.
Thank you.
Yellow. I think that's yellow.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if you used the ChatGPT to come up with key phrases for optimizing discoverability on web pages, and also if the copy that you used the ChatGPT for is better in terms of being picked up in search engine queries.
I'll start. Because I am the solution officer for an SEO research tool, I absolutely do not use GPT for keyword research, but I also know why, and it's because there's a difference between GPT's suggestion and the actual search behavior data that I review when I'm building a plan. And at the same time, I think the plausibility of AI-generated copy, one-to-one, just being rankable is pretty low. I think it's a good starting point. I think if you know what you want to write about, or you need at least some inspiration, you can start there and you can begin asking questions like, what do I need to talk about in order to get to page one? Or what are the other articles on page one not talking about that I could cover? Where are the gaps in the coverage? I think if you start getting a little bit more tactical like that, it can be really, really helpful, but I don't know if anyone else has experience here.
So I don't use it at all for keyword research. It does, what the output that I've gotten doesn't give the insights that I need. And then I wouldn't just take any article that it pushes and put it out there, because everything still needs massaged. We've had some really good success with articles that we've used the outlines that we've generated, but nothing that has been just without human input, human really tweaking the whole thing.
I have used it to get evergreen keyword ideas. I've used it in two instances. If I want to get evergreen keyword ideas, just to get an idea of within a cluster, what content can be created. The volume that shows is not always accurate, of course, but at least I get an idea, more or less where I can go within this topic. And then if I already did a keyword research and I have my set of keywords, if I want to see if I'm not seeing something, I might ask the AI or ChatGPT which keyword am I missing, or if there's anything else, just to make sure I'm covering everything. However, about titles, meta titles, H1s, I've tried probably 100 times getting something good. It's never good. Usually it's either super creative or romantic. It has nothing to do with the search intent. I asked multiple times, make it optimized for the keyword, and then the keywords at the end, they change everything. So my experience with headlines or titles, H1s, it's been terrible, but for keyword research, you might use it as assistance or just to get an idea of what you can write or create around.
I thought that it would be helpful for meta descriptions, so that was the first thing I tried from a generative standpoint. And one thing that's really weird that I found, and I'm talking, when I say it, I mean GPT, even GPT-4, I'd be this needs to be roughly give me 130 characters. And then it doesn't know what that means. It's going to give you 500, or it'll give me 200, and I'll be no, that was the wrong amount. And it'll be no, it's not. And it didn't even tell me the wrong count. Yeah. And so it's weird that there are some seemingly very bizarre limitations to it that extend beyond SEO sensitivities.
In terms of prompting, if you give it a word count,
Yeah,
just the
word is
word
better than
count,
character, yeah.
I can get something.
See, I do that, it doesn't work for me.
But anything with character count is just...
Oh, is it a character count?
Yeah.
I've also asked it to write like content of a certain length to see what it's capable of, and it generally taps out around like 600 words. If I try to go any longer than that, it struggles usually, even if I give it a really long keyword list or
Also, I
whatever.
haven't had that.
Yeah, mostly I wanted it to lose, so maybe I wasn't helping it that much.
Like, but, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good questions. Any other questions?
So you talked about building custom models, and this is in reference to removing bias and future-proofing, because ChatGPT's data set, I think, ends at 2021. So what is the value of staying relevant using this technology, right, and creating something that's tailored to your organization, your flavor, your branding? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, you can add in links, so although it's older content, if you put in a website or an article or something that's newer, it can take that information and create content from it. So like with affirmative action ruling, you can put in, oh, the Supreme Court decided on this is the case, can you write a statement for my client that works at X, Y, and Z, put their link in as well, and so that way it's kind of learning new information. So definitely can be, more recent.
I mean, if you were talking actually building something more custom, that would be more of a discussion with the programmers and developers that you have on staff rather than with the marketing team, though. But they can absolutely do that kind of stuff, most developers.
Ostensibly, Amanda, like you've seen, or at least on the fringe, you've seen customers of your organization who have said, we're going to take a vanilla off-the-shelf version of some AI tool, we're going to give it some custom training in our data, and then is that helpful? Is that worthwhile?
I think it is.
Okay.
But a lot of customers don't see the value of it.
Because I want it to just work like a magic wand. I don't want to have to do anything with it, right?
So does Google recognize when an article's been written by ChatGPT and are devaluing that content? And if so, what value does it really have for you as a marketer?
Yes, they are, but not necessarily. They know, but they're not necessarily killing. I've got a few data points on this. Number one, Neil Patel decided, I think it was a couple of years ago, to build 100 domains, 100 websites using AI-generated content. So again, this has been out for longer than the last 6 months, but over the last, I think it was last year that he really started populating these domains. 50 of them, he just took the output from AI and put it on the domain. The other 50, he edited the way that we're talking about editing content. When the spam update came out in, I think, November of last year, this was like the first real significant AI-related Google algorithm update that came out. Overnight, the edited sites saw about a 7% decrease in traffic. The unedited sites that were just pure AI is about 17%. That doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, my CMO would have a freaking heart attack if 17% of our traffic dropped off out of nowhere. So it's a significant amount. Rankings dropped by a significant number of positions as well. And at the time, Google was saying, we're watching. And actually, since that point, there have been like college students on the weekend building algorithms that can detect AI-written content. So what we don't really know as consumers if there are, some people are calling them invisible watermarks, something in the way it's written that it's just easily detectable by the right algorithm. But regardless of how Google's picking up on it, you can be assured that they're picking up on it. We've seen the impact. We've seen the results. At the same time, Google says, if you're using the content to write, or using AI to write helpful content, that in and of itself is not going to disqualify you from ranking well. So we don't have specific guidelines around, is there a percentage of the content that can be kind of pure AI? Is there a frequency? We don't know. What I've seen more directly is that I've had a few customers of mine use AI to write the articles that my software is empowering them to do. they've seen immediate lifts followed by steady drops. And I think that's because, the pillar-based marketing approach leads to that instant boost of authority, but once you start really comparing the AI written content to what else is out there, it's pretty easily debunked as the most authoritative. So it's not clear-cut. I wish it was more clear-cut than that, but the evidence does suggest that for sure Google's gonna see it, and if you're thinking I can do this instead of writing something worthwhile, you're not gonna rank.
I agree. I think we forget sometimes, especially when we do SEO, behind a click, behind keywords, an actual human. So if the content is not valuable enough or it's not catered to a human, you won't necessarily, you might rank, the first few days you might create a bunch of content on Vogue and you might see rankings and impressions and might even see clicks. But as long as the user behavior starts kicking in, clicks come in, you're probably going to see the page is going to drop, not only because Google detects it's AI, but also because users are not finding anything valuable from it, they're not staying long enough, they're going back to Google to get what they want. So you might see it rank for a while, but then it will just plummet since it's not adding value.
Agreed. We got 2 minutes, time for 1 or 2 more questions.
I would say one question, please. Quick question, quick answers.
All right, boss, one question.
All right, one quick question. So I think the general consensus here is that AI can create certain efficiencies, but certainly with certain limitations. And just like our human helpers, it is at its best when it's mentored and trained, and that takes time. Given all of that, what do you see as the future of AI? What is the trajectory?
First of all, thank you for summarizing this panel so eloquently. That was wonderful. I think the future is absolutely unknowable right now, because if we've seen this much change in the last 6 months, 5 years from now, I think efficiency is the place where there's the most potential. I'm very much looking forward to a time in the next year or so where there's a commercially available tool that will help me as a true virtual assistant. It's possible, it's just not commercially accessible yet. So I think a lot of the just crap we have to do in terms of typing things to search for information, to find specific answers to questions, to email people, to ask questions, to line things up. I think a lot of that's going to start going away, and it's going to be scary at first, but then it's going to lead to a lot more people who used to do a lot of boring stuff getting to actually think creatively. And that's just very exciting for me, and I hope that's the future that we have in front of us.
Yeah. Agree.
Agreed.
All right, boss, 30 seconds early. Looks like we're done.
All right, yay. Thank you so much. Thank you, panel.
Yeah.
Thank you again to our last panelists for that enlightening discussion. Now let's take it up a notch with our next fireside chat on the topic, the use of chatbots and conversational AI in modern advertising. When it comes to cutting-edge technologies today, there is still some untapped potential that lies within AI advancements. Our next speakers, Jashur Valko, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, CMO of Permissioned Networks, Inc., and Dr. Sonia Coleman, Director of Digital Engagement at Washington National Cathedral. They will take us into the world of modern advertising and also help us discover the power of chatbots and AI in advertising. Please put your hands together for our next speakers.
Hello. Can you hear me okay? Great. Yes.
So thank you for being here. I must say that I've learned a lot during this conference, and a lot of good things happened, but one of the really wonderful things that happened was the organizers getting Jayshree and me to do this together, because we chatted a lot yesterday, and we found out that we have so much in common. Very true, yes. So we're really excited, actually, to do this fireside chat together.
Thank you. And I think we should start with introducing ourselves first, maybe, Sonia. The way I think is that my correct name is Jayshree Vakil. Apologies to the MC here, but I am here representing our company, Permission Networks. I'm a CMO there. And we also run another company, which is called IntelliEngines, which is an AI tool, actually, AI company. My experience has been with major advertising agencies, DDB, Ogilvy, Wieden and Kennedy, and I have worked on accounts, large global accounts, General Mills, Marriott to Anheuser-Busch to Nike, all of them. I'm sorry, I have something in my throat, so I'll be clearing my throat every now and then since yesterday. Sorry about that, apologies though. Nike, who has seen the movie Air? So you can relate, okay. I came after that, by the way. I joined Wieden and Kennedy after that, but you can kind of relate to what went on and what, you know, the Wieden Kennedy folks or our team had to do, not to just make Michael Jordan brand, but all of the brands, Agassi to everything, you know, every single, including cross trainers, not the specialized brands, but that's what we were doing. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I've run my own advertising and marketing companies since then. I've had 5 startups in marketing, AI, and fintech, along with my better half, my spouse. And currently, as I said, I'm the CMO at PN. So overall, the way we had talked was like, we were AI before. AI was cool. That's where we come from. Anyway, I'll let Sonia talk about herself.
Thank you, Jayshree. Yes, so I come from a humanities background. I'm a visual artist and a poet, and when I first started in being a consultant for various companies, I was at the time getting my PhD from Columbia University. I wrote a dissertation sort of at the intersection of art and business, and learned a lot and specialized in social network analysis. And while I was doing my PhD, I was also consulting on organizational strategy, organizational change. And since then, I led the marketing and communications team at the Smithsonian for the National Museum of Asian Art. And currently, I am leading the digital transformation at one of our greatest tourist landmarks and churches in Washington, D.C., the Washington National Cathedral. And in all of these different projects, AI, as Jayshree mentioned, sort of came up time and again before it was all over the media. I mean, it's kind of interesting to think about how media, centers certain developments in technology, marketing, advertising for the larger public. And I think our panelists in the panel before us, right, said that
it feels very, very new, right? Because it's been in the news and everybody's talking about it maybe in the last, 3 months, 6 months, right, last year. But really, this has been in the making for decades. One thing that Jayshree and I were talking about yesterday is that some of the fundamental questions at the core of using AI, questions of ethics, questions of utilization, questions of human oversight, the morality question, responsibility. So all of these questions that are kind of at the core of using AI, they were there for the first researchers who were doing neural networks and machine learning decades ago. But at that time, right, because the technology was not there, these questions could be put a little bit on the back burner, right, because people were thinking, well, we're not there yet, right? So we can talk about this a little later on once the technology is there and it can have a real world impact. And right now, we're kind of there. Yeah, we still don't have the answers.
Yeah. In fact, my husband had done his MBA, but then he went and did his master's in computer science. And that was, and his specialization was in AI, believe it or not, at that time. So it's been around, and I think all of you know. So, can we ask how many, what the audience knowledge level is here when we were talking? Yes, do that. Who needs, because, by the way, the topic has changed for us over the last 15 days. It was something else. It was something else yesterday, and today is something else, by the way. So it doesn't matter. We'll talk about what's up here on the screen right now, but that's fine.
We'll make it interesting.
Yeah. Or feel free to make it interesting, from your angle too, and your side too, please. Who needs a primer here? Because what we were thinking was we might focus on, we break up AI into 2 parts, conversational and generative. And so we just want to know from the audience as to who needs a primer. I'm sure everybody's kind of pretty much familiar or more knowledgeable than we are at this point, but anybody need?
Yeah, so how many of you are familiar with the term conversational AI, if you have a good understanding of what that is?
I think most of them. There's some here that I see. Yeah.
And what about generative AI?
Okay, again, a few of them.
Yes. Okay. So just very, very quickly, right, when we think of conversational AI, we're thinking of virtual assistants, chatbots, right? So basically, any kind of AI-generated virtual voice that will interact with people.
Right, so it's text or speech or video, anything, but it's simple queries, right? And if you notice, retail industry has been using this forever. I mean, it's not today.
Exactly.
But, that's where it goes, yeah.
Yeah. And generative AI refers, as the name indicates, to content that is being generated by AI. And this can, range from generating content similar to what we're hearing before in the panel before us, right? You provide a prompt and you get an essay, a blog post, and an op-ed, or even AI-generated art.
Yeah, so it's more of based on your customization, I guess. That's where. Now, so we may want to bring up, for the benefit of some of them, is that the conversational AI, there have been frustrations, obviously, and you've heard this through panel discussions and other chats and everything here already. This is nothing new, but older generation hesitates, right, even today, regardless, to put whatever their queries are or whatever. And frustration definitely comes through. And if you remember old-time telephone companies or cable companies, I was like, I didn't ask that. Or why are they giving me this? Or that's not, oh, well, I'll hang up. That's what happens. That's the major frustration that and we still have that, by the way. It's not gone away, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the old metaphor of representative. I want to talk to an actual person.
Exactly.
Right? At the end of the phone tree. I mean, that is still very much there.
Right. Yeah, because I think generative, when we go that far, it takes features, attributes that are unique. Obviously, again, as we've discussed last 2 days, that prompting makes a lot of, prompting has to make sense, and that gives the true output or more genuine or valuable output. But you do lose some of the things that you lose with some of this. Now and again, I'm going back. We used to have maps when we drove. Now, today, our map reading skills are gone. Think about it. Totally gone. Why? Because of our generative AI. That's what has happened.
Interesting. Isn't that? Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned this. So in the 19-teens, 1920s, right, when artists started to use various means of mechanical reproduction, and when new forms of art were created, like conceptual art, installation art, and this went on, up to the present day, artists were not necessarily needing their skills to draw, to paint, to sculpt in order to create compelling art. And that in the literature has been called the de-skilling of the artist, right? So an artist doesn't necessarily have to have the skills anymore in order to produce art that is compelling. And I'm thinking that this is pretty much what's happening now. Going to your point, right? It's the de-skilling, right, of the human being, right? Because how many of us really, need to know how to make, more complex computing or even reading a map, right? I mean, we're relying more and more on technology, and I think AI is just taking this to a whole new level.
Yeah, but so overall in marketing and modern advertising now, since our topic is modern advertising more than what we started with, see, you probably come up, face this, right? Like, okay, so what should we do? Should we create a separate marketing only, and I'm just going to use marketing only conversational AI? Do I use that? Do I do that? Maybe, maybe not, because there are challenges with that too, right? Obviously. It has to be so comprehensive at the outset, like we were talking yesterday.
Yes.
And it can be too tied up to the market speak, again, if you take that marketing example.
Yeah, I think it has to do a lot with the prompt, right?
Right, exactly.
And it also has to do with what's baked into the research, right?
So yes.
Right, it's kind of those two ends.
Right. And it has to stay abreast with lots of evolving trends, if you think about it, based on what you just said, Sonia. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you can have that conversation be really efficient and satisfying at the customer end if what you are asking is calibrated well enough for the system to give you results that make sense, that are compelling, that create for a good user experience. But then it also depends on what happens at the other end, which is what are the types of discourses that are fed into the system, right? And I think that very much dovetails with this ethical consideration of how nuanced and how diverse the discourse is in terms of what the AI is picking up on.
Right.
And it has to do a lot with tone, with language, and with literacy, right? And here, Jayshree, I'm thinking about a point you made earlier that I'd like to come back a little bit to that. You were mentioning older users, right? And I mean, not everyone has the same level of digital literacy, of digital fluency, right? So if you're, I don't know, just giving an example, right? If you are a company that sells software solutions, right? Not everyone will understand, right, what exactly you do that can help their business or that can help their problem. But the AI being fed all of the different solutions that that company provides can explain it in a way that's very accurate and on point, except it's not really simplifying or using common language enough. And so at the customer end, you get something that most people are not even going to understand, right?
That's correct.
And so while it's very accurate and it's very quick, right, it has that advantage of proximity, right? I have these very complicated questions and I have this perfectly appropriate complex answer right away, except I can understand it, right? So the proximity is huge, right? But the UX is very, very low.
Right. So, I mean, there are two sides of it, right? How bland can you make it? That's one side of the area. And then, or how jargony, you know. So there has to be a balance. And I think what we were talking about and what we both agree on is that it has to be a right combination as far as the best solution. Again, it'll depend on the product, services, type of business and everything, and we each have a case or an example that we will share with you, a real, well, you know, like our own example, client example or customer example that we'll share with you, and that might enlighten all of these points that we are making more applicable to marketing and advertising or modern advertising. But a combination that we were talking about, Sonia, right, that it has to be both intertwined. Because it'll improve as the evolution happens, right, technology to everything. As one improves, so will the other. That's the way I think we see it, at least.
Yeah. So, you know, if we think about marketing, right, and advertising, using conversational AI has a lot of advantages. I think that generative AI has mostly been used for engagement, also on the content production side, obviously. But as Jayshree was mentioning, we were both exploring this combination of conversational and generative AI and how you can create an ecosystem for whatever your company is where those two are intertwined, they work together, they're integrated in a way that makes sense in order to increase engagement, increase the customer, the value, the quality of the customer experience, and ultimately increase sales.
Exactly. Now, Sonia, you had talked about, we were discussing this yesterday. You mentioned some of the shortcomings. Maybe this is the right time to bring that up for you at this point, right?
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about one actual project that involved generative AI in which I was involved. As some of you may know, the Metropolitan Museum in New York was one of the first to develop an AI-generated art project. So as you know, this is one of the museums with one of the largest collections in the world. They have everything from prehistory to today, all cultures, all time periods, all styles. So they digitized their entire collection. Everything was available as the bank of information that was fed into this AI system. And then the prompt was for the AI to create new art in between each two objects, right? So you can think of something that was, an object from 18th century France, an object from 19th century Brazil, right? Yeah. and the AI would create infinite permutations between those two objects. These were very plausible art objects. Like if you looked at one of them, you'd think, sure, this actually exists. Right. It was very, very well created. But going back to your question about shortcomings, what became immediately apparent was that those objects came with a lot of cultural power. Right? So what was that object actually telling a student of art? Was it closer to culture A or closer to culture B? Did it take into consideration historical contexts? Did it take into consideration histories of slavery, for example, that were very much part of some of those objects? Was it taken into consideration usage? Was it taken into consideration issues of provenance, issues of ownership?
Right.
I mean, all of these questions were, it really became a can of worms. It was like opening the Pandora's box. But in so doing, it was actually really exciting because it recentered these questions. They all became front and center, what needed to be explored. And that is, perhaps much more understandable in the context of academia, in the context of museums, in the context of the cultural sector. But I think it's equally relevant, perhaps even more so, in marketing and advertising.
Right.
Because as marketers, as advertisers, every content that we put out there, even when the goal is to, give a good experience to the customer and to incentivize the customer to take whatever action you want them to take, you are also very much contributing to culture. And in that sense, those questions are immediately translatable to marketing and advertising, also because it has to do with a much broader public.
Exactly. So you might have noticed that we have experience and we work in marketing and advertising and everything, but we have two sides of brains, right? Left and right. We both are artists as well, fine artists. So we have...
Jayshree is a very good artist.
And we have, so we apply, or we try to apply at least, or we've been successful in applying both sides equally into our businesses, into our solutions, into our creative marketing capabilities and everything. And so you will come across a lot of mentions of art, and as she just gave an example and all. So, but I think overall we're just trying to stay true to, but that's what we're trying to do. And she's an artist too, by the way. She just gives me the credit, but she's a fine artist too. But anyway, so since we are on this subject, right, fine artists, let me just point one thing, and then we can go back to our more serious or not so fun loving case studies, or in my opinion, AI won't replace creatives today, honestly. 5 to 10 years from now, yes, maybe. It is bridging the gap today, though, as we were talking and discussing. It is narrowing the gaps. And as our data sets keep growing, that'll narrow, and that's why I said down the road 5 to 10 years. But if you think about it today,
you cannot replicate a Picasso or a Monet. You cannot. And I think, you have tried it, I've tried it, and a lot of others, artists may have tried it. The DALL-E software, right? I mean, we've experimented. Not happy, not satisfactory at all, in fact. And so we have to keep that in mind because we still don't have enough data sets. So there's no way, creatives are going, or human creatives, human minds are going away at this point.
Yeah.
But sorry to, kind of interject that.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking of the applications of AI-generated art in advertising. Right now, luxury brands use it all the time.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we're seeing it with luxury brands in France, in South Korea,
Fashion.
Japan,
oh
China,
my God, we see it a lot, especially.
And fashion, exactly.
Yeah.
And it has to do with it's AI-generated art based on the sketches that led to the luxury products, whether it's clothing or handbags, shoes, perfume, and so on. And it's also AI-generated art based on the fashion shows or the presentation.
Exactly.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Jayshree, I mean, it's subpar at this point. It's not really where it needs to be.
It needs to be.
Yeah, but I think that there is a certain degree of glamour, right, that is already built around AI-generated luxury items. So, as you know, there is a huge market for NFTs. Very often, NFTs are AI-generated art objects, and they are connected to luxury brands, and there is still a gap, right, between the quality of those products and then their value currently on the market, on the commodity.
Right. So now, since we're talking about NFTs, let's go there. And I know we are a little bit off our, true, but I think that sheds a pretty good light on all of these. Yeah, the same thing that we're talking about here. So I have a website, right? Like my art website, my fine art website as well, because that's one of the other businesses that I handle, and it's all for sale, obviously, but. What I have been doing, and I shared this with you, is I've been taking each inquiry that comes for NFTs individually and evaluating, because at this point, it doesn't make me as comfortable to give up my physical original creation to digital art. And one main reason why, and Sonia knows about this, is I don't want to make it accessible to any and all AI algorithms. That's basically it. So I will take each individual case and then, figure out how and how,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Jayshree, because I think emphasizes like two uses of creating an NFT, right?
Exactly.
Whether it's of an ad image or your art or something else that you would use in that sense. One is that you have an additional digital product that you can market. The other is that you safeguard your copyright, right?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what your artwork is or what kind of,
Yeah, and as you all know, there's it's very much in the news these days, right? Because I think comedian Sarah Silverman, right, and a number of other authors are now suing, right, because their books, right, with their creative content was being used without any considerations of copyright as what was baked into AI, and it's not only only the problem, squarely around copyright, it's also that it completely dilutes the value of their own businesses, right? Apparently, if you ask ChatGPT for the contents of one of these books, they will give you everything.
Everything, right, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it really depends on individual artist or, individual cases. And again, in my case, what original art that we're talking about. And if the original is sold, then it's a different story too. So you have to evaluate anyway. Going back to if maybe we should cover some case studies or examples, ruler-based, machine learning,
Yes.
AI. So one of the companies that we have is IntelliEngines, and that's an AI company that we started. It's a startup. One of our clients is a semiconductor company, very specialized, very narrow audience. They are like brilliant, okay? They very innovative. One of these days, I'm sure the innovator is going to win a Nobel Prize, 110%. I'm guaranteed for that. But it's the product that you really have to understand, and not everybody, just say, okay, what it makes. And I'm not going to share a lot of information about it, or I cannot share a lot of information about it, but what the product is, what it does, what benefits are, or how it helps the audience. I myself, when we got that client, when I myself had to learn so much about semiconductor industry, the products and everything, I was literally sitting over the weekends looking through the YouTube channels, learning about mathematical and equations and algorithms and how and what goes into each product. So very, very narrow, specific, but regardless. So what we are doing is we have this company that we create our own AI-based software, by the way, rule-based as well as machine learning, right? Initially, it was rule-based and progressed to machine learning, and have multiple algorithms and all. But what we're trying to do is at some point, and we're not there yet, by the way, okay, for this, we want to be able to create this company, semiconductor companies, marketing content based on product description, market profile, everything, and that could be applicable to the websites, social media, to data sheets, to advertising. Now, remember, this is B2B advertising and all of that, okay? So it's nothing to do with B2C side. But we're not going to stop there, and that's why I said that we are adding machine learning and data sets going further. And what we also would like to do is be able to create customer-specific product proposals, or they should be able to do that as Arab. And that's, again, based on customer profile, technical requirements, who the audience is, how do we match them. They have 3 products, so who to match with whom. So we're doing all of that. And then automatic recommendations will be discovered after we are, through that process, and it'll match the company, product, company line to the audience. And of course, all of you, a lot of data goes in there, and, in building this and all. So that's our goal. And we also want to take it a step further, where they're going to be able to create RFPs, RFQs, all of those based on everything that we input there. Ultimately, So all of this is great, and it's going to help us do. However, one point very clear, that doesn't mean that myself or my team is going to be obsolete. No, because it can find a lot of things, it can do a lot of things, but ultimately, our team is going to have to work or add or apply our brains and think of out-of-the-box solutions, marketing tactics, marketing strategies, also content, like how do we position? Because what we are trying to, each marketer, all of us, what we try to do is how do we touch the target audience in their own heart, right? Like what buttons to push emotionally, how can we touch them? And those are the kind of things that the machines may not be able to give us insights on. So we always have, and that's one of my major things, that target audience is the key. And regardless whether it's B2B, B2C, B2B2C, whatever it is, you have to speak their language. You have to see what they are looking for, what are their pain points, not just be able to sell, right? So you have to touch their heart and make their jobs easier or anything. And that's where human and our team, marketing team, is never going to go away. But that's just one example that, I would like to quote, and I think you had one.
That's fascinating, Jayshree, because I'm thinking of the matrix that we're kind of weaving here, right?
Right.
Like all the things that need to be right and all the things that need to be fine-tuned,
Exactly.
right? I mean, it's about, speaking that language and being basically a content expert, right? But then calibrating the tone and the language that you use to convey that meaning depending on whom you're speaking to, right? And then there is all the legal and ethical considerations that go into it, right? And then the different levels that you may want to go, right? If you speak to someone who's an expert, if you speak to someone who's a customer, and as you say, that little bit of magic, right? That little bit of heart that needs to be there even for things that are extremely technical, like semiconductors.
I know.
I am looking at the time and I see that we're a little bit at the 10-minute mark or so. So, we've been chatting here and enjoying our conversation with each other.
We've been doing this since yesterday afternoon, by the way.
We would love to hear from you as well. If there is any questions, please let us know.
Hi, thank you for the very interesting talk. I wanted to ask you about something that we've talked about in the last session and this session sort of obliquely, which is the other side of it, which is analysis of audience. One of the things that those of us that understood neural networks early in the beginning of the development of that concept, looking into today, understand that one of the key benefits of AI is ability to analyze complex, chaotic systems and find relationships and therefore come to interesting conclusions about relationships that maybe a gifted, brilliant man like Einstein would see, but the average person can't find. When you look at advertising in mass marketing from the very beginning, late 19th century, early 20th century, Edward Bernays wrote a famous book called Propaganda, and then another guy named Walter Lippmann wrote a famous book called Public Opinion. And they both together are critical because they talk about the ability to manipulate the public. Propaganda, that book was used by, sorry to bring them up, the Nazis to develop their propaganda. So talk about AI in terms of audience analysis. You think about Paco Underhill. He was brilliant at coming up with ways of getting people to buy things in a mall and wrote great books about it. AI strikes me as an incredible opportunity to understand, if you want to sell a product, new ways of looking at how people actually like the product, new market segments that might be discovered. Like this product, wait a minute, this actually is something that would sell this audience in France or in India or in China or wherever. So talk about that side of it, because I think that's a fascinating part of this.
That's a great question, a great comment. Yeah, I would point out here a very interesting and potentially really wonderful, productive combination that is being explored, but I think we're seeing only the beginning of it, which is the combination of big data analysis and micro targeting. Right? Because as you mentioned, what we've seen with social network analysis, with analysis of big data, big networks, is that AI can help you see certain connections, certain patterns, certain identities that otherwise you wouldn't be able to see because of the noise, because of the sheer volume. And that's where I think there's a lot of lessons learned, right, from big data analysis and from social network analysis that can have direct applications into marketing and advertising that is AI powered. But I think it gets really, really interesting when you combine that with micro targeting. Because when you engage in that exercise of micro audience segmentation and micro-targeting, you get into persona creation, right? And there you're talking about a specific person, right? You get to that layer of the subjective layer, right? And I actually did this exercise with ChatGPT in my own work. I asked ChatGPT to construct personae. And as you know, that's something that marketing agencies do, right? It's kind of the bread and butter, right, of like audience segmentation, then you workshop persona. I asked the ChatGPT to create certain personae based on certain audience segments, market segments. It was very interesting, because some of it was kind of obvious, some of it was just wrong, and then a tiny bit of it was actually really interesting and useful. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Jayshree, about that human touch, right? That is important to connect the micro-targeting and the social network analysis, and also to kind of pick and choose what is valuable.
So just to add a couple of points on this is that what you talked about persona, right? Like, it's interesting because my advertising agency days, when we had interns coming in, or, we would give them exercises saying that, okay, here is a magazine, Vogue, just out of the blue, whatever. Okay, if it were a human being, what would the persona, how would you personify this particular magazine? And don't think about it as magazine. And then they start, that was one of the exercises, and we did that. And you're absolutely right, ad agencies, we used to do it all the time, because you have to kind of think it. But to come back to your question, Permission Networks, the company that we have, so basically what it offers, it's an integrated marketing place, a marketplace that enables online transactions, but it's a permission. It's not like the wild crypto open blockchain. It is based on blockchain, but it is for particular segments. You have to be vetted, you have to be invited onto it, vetted and all that. But anyway, so once you have that marketplace, and we specialize, or a couple of areas that we have clients within them are financial institutions. They're the largest, banks and credit unions and all of them. And they use us, our product, to trade loans or credits, whatever is on their books, and that's what they do. They buy, sell, they can, they find each other, buyers and sellers. Then we can take them to a deal room. If they have the match, we take them to the deal room. They can actually negotiate a deal, and if that goes through, then we take them to the next step of closing that deal. But all of this is under a blockchain-based technology, And so every single thing is saved, basically, right? It's secure, it's saved and everything, but for that business, Permission Networks, we have used AI to help us do some market research and find underserved markets. So another example, like healthcare insurance, that's another category that we work with. And we have, of course you have to feed a lot of data into it and everything, but we have discovered underserved segments using AI and all of these analytics that we're talking about to find those just audiences that I or anybody on our team would never have thought about. Our business development guys or product guys, none of them, or us marketing folks, we never. And we have developed marketplaces for them, or we have started developing marketplaces and reaching out the segments for them, and particularly in healthcare industry, insurance industry is what we have used that for. So absolutely, this is something that that can be amazing.
Direct
Discover,
application.
a direct application, exactly, that we have been, Does that answer your question between two of us? Okay.
We have time for about one more question.
Thank you. No technical questions, please. No, no, it's fine.
I'm just curious if you guys have a thought about if there's going to be an AI kind of backlash, because I think already, and you hinted upon this, people want that connection, they want that magic, they want to feel like they're speaking to someone. I think we've all seen like automation gone wrong. Do you feel like, or are you seeing any people that are going the opposite way of AI and automation and saying, I just want to get closer to the customer?
Great question.
Yes.
Yes. The short answer is yes.
I would think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jayshree, if you have
No,
something.
you're fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking of, I'm going to bring an example from the fashion world. Actually, a good friend of mine and a partner in South Korea recently wrote a book about NFTs. And there she actually has a chapter, I can tell you the name of the book after, she has a chapter dedicated to this idea of the return to a non-machine based, non-AI based interaction, and she's there thinking about some of the things that AI, some of the value added of AI, what is it really that is so seductive, right? I mean, it's the fact that it can, have this immediate access to massive quantities of data, right? It's the fact that it can meet demand instantaneously, right? It closes that gap between demand and supply, right? And it's also that it can maybe provide something surprising, right, for whoever uses it, because it doesn't, it has the benefit of not being tired or cynical or jaded, or so she's like teasing out all of these instances of value added, right, of AI, and thinking through, okay, how can we do that? How can we achieve that value without using AI? Right? So there is definitely already that other side of the coin, that has begun already to be explored.
Okay, heard you.
We have 0 minutes left.
All right,
Thank
time
you
now.
so much.
I did want to let everyone know that the showstopper session, How to Gain an Edge in the Financial Markets with speaker Jeff Tomasulo, will be in the Internet Ballrooms, room 316. That's the back hallway right there. Thank you to our panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it.